Jace Ember was a salvage diver who moved from world to world. On planet Thalassa, he traveled alone, guided by his thirst for ancient relics. One evening, the sky turned violet as twin suns set behind rocky spires. Jace made camp near a deep canyon. Flames of his small fire crackled and danced. Just as he leaned back to rest, he heard a faint, gentle sound, like a soft whimper carried by the wind. The cry felt urgent and pure, full of fear. Jace's heart tightened. He paused, listening with all his senses. He had spent years in empty places, but this sound stirred something deep inside him, a need to protect. He stood slowly, careful not to startle whatever lay in the darkness. His breath came steady, and he reached for his lamp. The metal handle was cool and smooth against his fingers. He lit the lamp, and its warm light spread around him. Shadows moved on the rock walls. The whimper came again, faint but urgent. Jace could have turned away. He knew danger lurked in unknown canyons. Still, he felt a pull stronger than caution. He followed the sound, stepping lightly on loose stones. Each footfall echoed softly. His chest tightened with each step, not from fear, but from hope to find someone who needed help, someone he could save and give a second chance. After a few minutes, Jace came to a narrow opening in the canyon wall. Beyond it lay a hidden grotto. Strange crystals glowed faintly in the damp air, reflecting soft blues and greens. In the pale light, he saw a small figure huddled near a shallow pool. The child's skin shimmered like the crystals themselves. Her eyes were large and filled with tears, glancing up at Jace with both fear and a spark of relief. She looked almost otherworldly, but her small frame and trembling shoulders spoke of pure vulnerability. Jace felt a gentle ache in his heart. He knelt slowly, lowering his lamp so the light did not blind her. The child pressed her back against the cool stone, her lips quivering as she tried to speak. Jace noticed that she had no words at first, only quiet sobs. He spoke softly, his voice low and kind. "I won't hurt you. You are safe now." He did not offer to pick her up right away. Instead, he sat cross-legged and extended his hand. He hoped she would trust him. After a long moment, she reached out with one tiny hand and touched his fingers. The connection was simple but powerful. In that touch, Jace felt her fear begin to ease. He bowed his head. "I will help you," he said. Gently, Jace stood and wrapped her in his jacket, which smelled of oil and distant storms. The child relaxed, her body leaning against him like a leaf settling on water. He lifted her in his arms, careful of her fragile weight. The crystal's light faded behind them as he carried her back toward his camp. The journey was slow. Loose rocks and twisted roots made each step a test. Yet Jace moved with calm determination. Each time she stirred, he whispered a few comforting words in a soft tone. Her small hand found his shoulder and gripped it, trusting him entirely. For the first time that night, Jace understood what it meant to have someone depend on him. When Jace reached his camp, he laid a soft blanket on the ground and sat beside her fire. The flames glowed orange and inviting. He gave her water from his canteen and offered a simple meal of dried fruit. She nibbled quietly, her eyes curious as they followed his every move. Jace felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the fire. He watched her eat, her glow dimming to a soft, steady light as she regained strength. He knew he could not leave her alone here. Dawn would break soon, and hope would follow. Jace promised himself that he would see her safely, home, no matter where that journey led. Jace, Ember led Glow to the edge of the alien town. The settlement of Thalassa spread before them in tall crystal spires and glowing walkways. Glow clung to Jace's coat, her small hand gripping him tight. His heart pounded as he stepped onto the luminous path. He could hear a soft hum of engines and distant voices. He felt the child's warmth and fear against his side. He drew a steady breath and squared his shoulders. Every footfall lit beneath his boots, like soft beacons guiding him forward into this strange new world. 2 sentries stood alert at the gate, their polished armor catching the morning light. They watched Jace and the child with cautious eyes. Jace stopped a few steps away and knelt, holding Glow protectively. He lifted one hand in the simple salute he had learned from faded Earth records. In a low voice, he spoke the few Thalassian words he knew. "Child safe." The soldiers exchanged a glance, then relaxed their posture and motioned him onward. Relief washed over Jace as he rose and followed their silent lead into the town. Along the glowing street, villagers paused in their tasks to stare. Farmers hauling crates of glowing fruit slowed their pace. Mothers stopped rocking prams that glowed like soft lanterns. A healer in green silk robes stepped forward and gently took Glow into her arms. The child's tears gave way to a curious smile as the healer checked her for injuries. Jace watched, chest tight with relief. He brushed back a lock of hair and offered a small, grateful nod. Around them, gentle Thalassian voices rose in a soft chorus of thanks that warmed his heart. From the crowd strode a tall figure with calm grace. Her skin shone like pale moonlight, and her deep blue eyes glistened with tears. She moved with quiet dignity toward Jace. As she closed the distance, the villagers bowed their heads. She knelt before him, placing one slender hand on his knee, a sign of deep respect in her culture. Jace felt the weight of her gratitude and sorrow mingled in that single gesture. He reached down and gently clasped her hand, drawing strength from her trust. Kiora rose and spoke in her melodic tongue. Jace listened, catching words he recognized. Thank, child, and safe. She smiled, then guided him toward her home at the heart of the settlement. Along the way, she pointed at his gear and asked questions he answered in broken phrases. Earth, wanderer, help. Her soft laughter sounded like wind chimes in a breeze. With each shared word, they built a fragile bridge between their worlds. Jace realized that kindness could cross any boundary, no matter how vast. Inside the town, Jace saw gardens of bioluminescent plants and clear streams that flowed with glowing water. He paused to help carry a crate of healing herbs to a storeroom. His strong arms eased the burden for two young villagers. They offered him shy smiles of thanks. Kiora watched him work, pride in her eyes. Afterwards, she showed him simple machines that purified water and grew food in crystal beds. Jace marveled at their beauty and purpose. He felt honored to share his knowledge, even if it was small, and to learn from their wisdom in return. As dusk settled, the community gathered for a meal under the pale light of twin moons. Jace sat beside Kiora and Glow at a low stone table. They passed bowls of sweet root stew and cups of moonflower tea. Glow laughed as she fed Jace a spoonful, her eyes bright with mischief. Kiora's hand found his, and he felt a quiet joy spread through him. Flickering torchlight danced on crystalline walls. In that moment, Jace knew that Thalassa had become more than a stop on his journey. It felt like the start of something new and wonderful. Jace woke before sunrise. Kiora and a small group of villagers stood at the edge of the settlement as he joined them. They carried simple tools and lanterns made from glowing crystal. Jace listened to Kiora's instructions in soft Thalassian, learning each word carefully. Though he knew only a few phrases, he repeated them with effort. The villagers watched him speak, their faces curious and encouraging. Together, they walked to a nearby field of solar reef panels. The panels rose like silent guardians, their glass surfaces dimmed by the last storm. At the reef, a crack ran through one of the central panels. Jace knelt to examine it, his heart racing. The villagers formed a circle around him. He took out a simple spanner from his pack and cleaned the crack gently. He used a human sealant he carried, spreading it with careful fingers. Each movement was slow and precise. The Thalassians murmured in their melodic tone. Jace felt their wonder as he tightened the bolts. The panel glowed a little brighter under his touch. When he stood, a hush fell. Then, a soft cheer rose as the repaired panel hummed with fresh energy. Curious villagers stepped forward with questions. Jace answered in broken Thalassian and simple English. He spoke of earth, home, sky blue, water everywhere. He made a wide gesture for ocean waves. They laughed gently, the sound like wind through crystal stalks. A young man handed Jace a small drawing board and asked for more. Jace drew basic shapes of mountains and trees. He added stick figures standing by a river. The crowd nodded and smiled. Kiora translated their praise. Your world is full of life. Jace's chest swelled with warmth. He had never felt so connected to strangers. Next, Jace showed them a human pulley. He tied a rope and hooked it to a sturdy beam. Two villagers pulled the rope, lifting a heavy crystal block with ease. Their faces shone with amazement. Simple, Jace said, patting the pulley. They passed the tool from hand to hand, testing the lift. When a child tried to pull, the beam rose gently. Cheers rose around him. Glow clapped her hands and danced, her laughter bright as morning light. Jace caught Kiora's eye, and she bowed in respect. In that moment, he saw hope bloom in their faces. As the sun rose high, Kiora invited Jace to help with another task. She led him to the settlement's water filters built from crystal bowls. Jace added a simple earth method, a cloth filter made from woven fibers. He poured water slowly, showing them how the cloth caught tiny particles. The villagers gasped softly at the clear water that poured below. They tasted it and nodded in approval. Jace offered a humble smile. Glow pressed close, her small hand in his. The girl's trust warmed him. He realized that small ideas could change lives on this distant world. In the afternoon, the community gathered in the central hall. Kiora invited Jace to speak. He stood before the crowd, his voice calm. He told the story of an earth festival where people flew lanterns into the sky. He described how the lanterns floated like stars carried by hope. The Thalassians listened in silent awe. Jace paused often, choosing simple words. With each pause, the audience leaned closer. When he finished, they erupted in gentle applause. Tears glistened in Kiora's eyes as she bowed to him. As twilight fell, the villagers lit soft lanterns along the walkways. They called Jace to stand at the center. A young woman draped a garland of glowing flowers around his neck. Jace held the garland gently, feeling its soft weight. He looked at Kiora and then at Glow. The child smiled and held up a small hand. Jace knelt and kissed her forehead. The crowd cheered with gentle cries of joy. In that golden light, Jace felt something stir deep in his heart, a sense of belonging he had never known. Jace rose before dawn, carrying Glow in his arms as the first light of Thalassa crept over the horizon. The girl's small face pressed against his chest, her breathing soft and even. He laid her gently on a woven mat beside the riverbank, where pale currents glowed like liquid moonlight. With steady hands, he gathered smooth driftwood and vines, humming a quiet tune he had learned on Earth. Glow stretched and yawned, her eyes bright with curiosity. Together, they worked in silence, binding the pieces into a tiny boat that looked simple, yet perfect in her small hands. When the toy boat was ready, Jace and Glow knelt at the river's edge. He placed the vessel on the glowing water and gave it a gentle push. It drifted at first, caught the current, then began to sail in soft circles. Glow's laugh rang clear, a pure sound that filled the crisp air. She clapped and danced on the bank, calling out in her alien tongue and earth words. Mixed, go, boat, go. Jace watched the little craft glide beneath twin moons, feeling a warmth spread through his chest he had never known before. Later, Kiora found them by a grove of singing crystals, their voices chiming in the gentle breeze. She sat beside Jace and Glow, her hand resting lightly on his S. The child leaned against her mother, pointing at the boat as it bobbed downstream. Kiora smiled and spoke softly to Glow, then turned to Jace with eyes full of gratitude. He offered her a simple nod, but his smile spoke volumes. In that shared silence, they felt a bond form, one built not by words, but by kindness, trust, and the small miracle of a child's laughter. As the sun climbed higher, Jace helped Kiora gather crystal petals for a healing brew. They moved together through fields of glowing flowers, their steps in gentle rhythm. Kiora told him of her duties in the settlement, her words carrying pride and worry. Jace listened and offered suggestions, simple human ideas that might ease her tasks. She leaned close and brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead, her touch lingering. His heart fluttered at the tenderness. He wanted to speak, but only found himself breathing in the moment, cherishing the warmth of her presence. That evening, the three of them sat beneath a sky of drifting starships, their lights like distant fireflies. Kiora placed a soft shawl over Glow's shoulders and offered Jace a cup of moonflower tea. The steam curled between them as they drank. Kiora asked Jace about Earth's stars, and he described his home sky, where constellations told ancient stories. Glow listened with wide eyes, leaning into Jace's arm. When he finished, she whispered, "Tell again." Jace smiled and began another tale, his voice steady and gentle, weaving hope between every word. When Glow finally drifted to sleep against Kiora's side, Jace stood and stepped into the soft grass. He gazed at the settlement's lights far below. Then back to Kiora. She rose and joined him, her silhouette framed by bioluminescent blooms. Neither spoke at first. The air held the promise of something new. Jace reached for her hand, and she took it without hesitation. Their fingers entwined, simple and strong. In that quiet moment, he felt the weight of choice between the life he had known and the life unfolding here. Hand in hand with them both, Jace knelt by the sleeping child and kissed Glow's forehead. Then, standing, he looked at Kiora. His voice trembled with honest emotion as he said, "I never thought I could find home so far from Earth." She smiled, tears glistening like crystal dew. She stepped forward and rested her head against his shoulder. Together, they watched the night sky, two worlds reflected in their hearts, bound by the simple truth that kindness can forge a home anywhere in the universe. Jace stood at the entrance of the Hall of Vows. The doorway towered above him, made of glimmering crystal carved with ancient symbols. Torches of soft blue light lined the walls, and the air smelled of cool stone and sweet petals. Villagers formed two gentle rows, their faces turned toward the center. Glow clung to Kiora's hand and looked at Jace with shining eyes. His heart beat fast, full of hope and fear. He had come to help a lost child, but now he stood in a place of promise and binding. Every step he took echoed like a promise he did not yet understand. The hall was silent except for the hum of hidden lights that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Jace followed Kiora to the center, his boots clicking on the polished floor. She wore a simple gown of pale silk that glowed in the torchlight. In her free hand, she held a ring made of moonlit crystal. The villagers watched with soft smiles, their eyes bright with expectation. Jace's throat felt tight. He thought of lonely nights on distant worlds, and wondered how this moment filled him with both dread and joy. He drew a steady breath and met Kiora's gaze. Kiora knelt on a raised platform and bowed her head. The crystal ring caught every flicker of light, throwing patterns on the walls. Jace knelt beside her, his fingers trembling as he reached for her hand. She looked up, her eyes full of tears and gratitude. In her native tongue, she spoke words that meant thanks, trust, and love. Then she slipped the ring onto his finger. It felt cool and smooth against his skin. A breath escaped Jace's lips. He did not know he held it so long. His mind filled with a single thought. He could never let her go. When he arose, all eyes followed him. Kiora offered her hand again. "Jace Ember," the elder priest intoned, his voice deep and steady. "Do you accept this vow? Will you stand as protector and partner to Kiora and her child?" Jace saw Glow's small face, hopeful and wide. He saw Kiora's hands trembling as she waited. He closed his eyes for one brief moment and drew in a breath as deep as he could. His wandering soul settled in his bones. In a clear, firm voice, he answered, "I will." A gentle song began, filling the hall with soft sound. Kiora stepped forward and slipped a second ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if made for her. She placed her hands on Jace's shoulders and smiled. Their eyes met, speaking a promise stronger than any words. Glow ran to them and wrapped her arms around Jace's waist. He leaned down and kissed the top of her head. Her laughter was light and bright. In that moment, Jace felt warmth bloom. Inside him a family, formed by compassion and trust. Outside the hall, lanterns floated into the night sky. Each glowed with soft color as villagers released them toward the stars. Jace held Kiora's hand and pulled her close. She rested her head on his shoulder, and he felt her heartbeat steady beside his own. He whispered words of thankfulness in broken Thalassian. A gentle breeze carried the scent of crystal petals. Every petal seemed to promise a new beginning under twin moons. Jace knew that when the lights faded, this vow would shine brighter than any star. Before they left, the elder priest placed a slender staff in Jace's hand. It bore the same ancient symbols as the hall. "Carry this as a sign of unity and duty," the priest said. Jace felt the weight of his new promise and nodded solemnly. Glow skipped ahead, humming a tune of her own invention. Kiora smiled and brushed a kiss on Jace's cheek. In that kiss was everything he needed to know. He had chosen to stay, and his life would never be the same again. They walked back through the crystal gates into the soft glow of lantern light. Villagers bowed and called out blessings. Jace held Kiora close and looked up at the stars. In his mind, he saw Earth's night sky, now mingled with Thalassa's heavens. With a child in his arms and a wife at his side, Jace Ember felt a joy deeper than any treasure he had ever found. He had rescued a lost life, and in return he had gained one of his own. His journey had led him here to love, to family, and to hope that would shine across all worlds. Jace woke before dawn, the soft light of twin moons spilling through his window. He rose quietly and dressed, mindful not to wake Glow or Kiora. Outside, cool air brushed his face as he stepped onto the balcony. Below him lay the settlement walkways, crystal spires, and warm lights whispering of home. In his hand, he held Kiora's ring, its smooth surface cool against his palm. His heart pounded with questions. Could he truly stay here, or should he return to the drifting life he once knew? Back in his room, Jace packed his satchel. He folded his simple clothes with careful hands and tucked away his tools. Behind each item lay a memory of past travels, wrecked starships, silent deserts, distant worlds. He thought of the endless sky and the freedom it once gave him. Yet in every world he had visited, he had walked alone. Now he faced a future tied to Kiora and Glow. The weight of possibility pressed on him more heavily than any cargo he had carried through the stars. He found Glow, waiting in the hallway, clutching her glowing toy boat. Her small face brightened. When she saw him, "Are you leaving?" she asked, in halting earthwords mixed with her own tongue. Her blue eyes glistened with worry. Jace knelt and wrapped her in a gentle hug. "I don't know," he said softly. She pressed her cheek to his, her voice a whisper. "Stay, please." The child's plea sank into his heart like a stone in calm water. Her trust made him ache with both hope and fear. Later, he joined Kiora by the riverbank. She stood in pale light, her silhouette framed by gentle currents. He offered her the ring again, and she took it without words. Together, they watched the water flow. Kiora spoke quietly of duty to her people and love. For her child, she spoke of the union they had formed and the life they could build. Jace listened, the ring heavy on his finger. He lifted Kiora's hand to his lips, kissing it with reverence. Her warmth grounded him. Yet his mind raced toward the unknown. Beyond the river's glow. Memories flashed through Jace's mind. The roar of rocket engines on distant launch pads, the taste of rain on an Earth morning, the sound of laughter in a crowded tavern under neon lights. He remembered nights spent alone in cramped cabins, staring at empty horizons. Those memories had once felt full of promise. Now they tasted of emptiness. He realized that freedom meant more than distance, it meant belonging. And for the first time, a home felt possible in this alien world. As afternoon shadows stretched, Jace climbed a rocky ledge overlooking the settlement. Below him, life moved in gentle harmony, villagers tending gardens, children playing by the glowing stream, Kiora and Glow walking hand in hand. He breathed deeply, tasting the crisp air. Above, twin suns edged toward setting, painting the sky. In violet and gold, he reached for the ring again, wondering if his path lay forward or back. His chest tightened as the wind whispered through crystal stalks a voice, urging him to choose. In the quiet light, Jace let the wind settle his thoughts. He slipped the ring onto his finger and felt its cool touch. A gentle certainty bloomed. In his heart, he could not return to the lonely wanderer he once was. He turned toward home, toward Kiora and Glow, waiting by the garden gate. Though his fear of the unknown still lingered, he felt something stronger. A hope carried on every soft breeze. With steady steps, he made his choice, ready to embrace the life he had never dared to imagine. Jace woke to soft laughter drifting through the open window. He rose and dressed quietly, then stepped outside into the warm light of dawn. Glow was already awake, her small feet padding across the courtyard toward him. She reached up and wrapped her arms around his legs. Jace knelt and hugged her, feeling her tiny heartbeat steady against his chest. In her smile he found a joy deeper than any treasure he had salvaged among the stars. Together, they went to the communal garden where Kiora tended glowing vines. The plants curled gently around crystal trellises, their petals sparkling in morning light. Kiora looked up and smiled when she saw them. Jace offered to help, and she handed him a basket of freshly picked fruits. He arranged them carefully on a low table, while Glow skipped between the rows, trailing laughter like soft bells. Jace watched them both, his heart full. Here was home, built by kindness and shared hope. After breakfast, the villagers gathered at the edge of the settlement to bid farewell as Jace prepared for a journey to the ancient ruins beyond the canyon. He would explore new relics and secure supplies for their growing community. Kiora stood by his side in simple silken robes, and Glow clutched a small satchel of keepsakes. The elder priest placed a gentle hand on Jace's shoulder and whispered, "Blessings in Thalassian." Jace bowed his head, honoring the vow he had made and the life he had chosen. As he stepped onto the glowing path, villagers called out farewells. Jace waved, his satchel heavy with tools and gratitude. He paused to look back at Kiora and Glow, their figures framed by crystalline spires. His chest tightened with emotion, but he nodded firmly and pressed on. Each step carried him further into the unknown, yet his heart remained anchored to the settlement behind him. The canyon was quiet, its walls alive with soft echoes of distant water. Jace moved carefully over shifted stones, pausing to record sketches of peculiar rock formations. He thought of Earth's deserts and mountains, but here the colors were deeper, alive with glowing minerals and alien flora. He collected samples and placed them in his pack. Every discovery felt like a gift he would share with Kiora and the villagers, a way to repay their kindness and build a stronger future. At midday, he reached the ancient ruins, towering pillars half buried in sand that glowed like liquid gold under twin suns. He set to work, mapping inscriptions that spoke of a lost civilization's harmony with nature. Sweat beaded on his brow, but his spirit soared. In uncovering these relics, he felt connected not only to Thalassa's past, but to humanity's drive to explore and to learn. Each carved symbol reminded him that curiosity, compassion, and community bridged any gulf between worlds. As dusk fell, Jace began his journey home. He carried precious relics and samples, his pack heavier but his heart lighter still. Night drifted in around him, lit by the silver glow of distant moons. When the settlement's lights appeared below, he felt a rush of relief and pride. He had ventured out alone, faced unknown challenges, and returned bearing gifts of knowledge and hope. Kiora and Glow waited at the gate. Glow ran forward, throwing her arms around Jace's legs, and he swooped her up into a warm embrace. Kiora stepped close, her hand finding his. In her eyes he saw gratitude, love, and the promise of every tomorrow. Jace smiled and held them both, breathing in the gentle night air. Around them, lanterns glowed like soft stars. In that moment, he knew his choice had been right. Humanity's strength was not in weapons or wealth, but in kindness, in family, and in the courage to open one's heart across the cosmos. And so, under twin moons and starlit skies, Jace Ember began the life he had never dared to dream, bound by love, driven by hope, and ready to light the universe with humanity's brightest flame.